Hey, everybody, it is Friday Eve. It's good to have you here. Thanks so much for joining the show. I'm sure you heard the news about a massive gambling bust today. If that's the headline that you heard, I need to take you into the Ocean's 11 part of this, because the stories that we're hearing about what happened in these illegal, high-stakes gambling rooms, it's amazing. And the stories we're hearing about the athletes and coaches that did stuff to make money for themselves or others, it's amazing. And they're tied together. Let me just put it this way. The sports stuff you've probably heard of before, the way that works. Like, oh, I got an injury, I'm not telling anybody, or oh, let's throw a game, that kind of thing. But the gambling stuff, this is crazy. Like, they're using X-ray tables to see the cards from underneath. Like, the face-down cards can be read from under the table. They're using contact lenses to see the invisible marks on the other player's cards. They're using shuffling machines that memorize and card count and tell you who's going to lose and who's going to win. And then they put these poor losers, rich losers, I should say, at those tables and fleece them for everything they got. And when those losers can't pay, they bring in the mob. You know, break your knees kind of stuff. This is the story that gripped me today about this massive gambling ring headline. I'm going to break it down for you and name some names. And guess what? Tonight, I have two former mobsters who are going to talk about yeah, that's how they do it. These guys have become friends of the show. They are regulars now, Michael Francis and Sammy the Bull Gravano. So they're going to come up and talk about how, yeah, this was standard op when we was in the mob, and then how it's changed today with all the high-tech additions to it. That's coming up. Mark Geragos is also going to lean in and tell me about those bold-faced names you're about to hear and what's in store for them. Also, I got an update on this little girl named Melody. As the story broke, she was missing. And this $1 million little smile just captured our hearts. So we put up her picture and we asked you all, please keep your eyes out for Melody. If you've seen her, call Crime Stoppers, say something, report it to the police. But what we don't understand is why Melody's mom won't talk to us, or grandmother, or aunts, or uncles, or any of her family. Because when a child goes missing, they are banging down our doors. Please put our child's picture on the news and interview me, and let's hope that some viewer somewhere sees her. That ain't happening here. So my question is, what is happening? Is this a missing child investigation? Could this possibly be a murder investigation? Dig into that in just a moment. I've got an FBI specialist on the show tonight who's going to tell me what she thinks about it. And then also, you know that whole thing that happened at the Louvre Museum in Paris? Right, 7 minutes. I thought the same thing you did. Wow, that was fast. As it turns out, it could have been half the time had they not done a whole Keystone Cops maneuver on the way out. It is comical. I'm telling you, when I show you the video, you're probably going to share it with all your friends and laugh like, is this really the people who were able to hoodwink the Louvre? Because, damn, brother, I could have done it, and I'd have done better. All right, so let's start here, because you've seen it in the movies. Shady figures in trench coats and fedoras. You know, they corner an unsuspecting victim in a dark alley, right? And then what they say next is almost cliche. Pay up, Jimmy, or we're going to take out you at the knees, yeah? And the next time they meet Jimmy, they take him out at the knees. This has been the stuff of Hollywood legend for decades. Dirty debts and desperate gamblers and mobsters who will not take no for an answer, but often take something else. And now the story's coming true right across the country in a massive gambling and sports scheme that would leave those mob movies in the dust. The FBI has just arrested a whole spreadsheet of famous people, alleged bad guys, who were caught up in a national gambling scheme that ensnared the mob, the NBA, and a cast of unsuspecting high-stakes gamblers who had no idea they were being had. The sprawling national scam has two distinct parts to it, okay? First, there's the high-stakes poker scams, right out of Molly's game, right? Cheating big spenders who are not afraid to lay big bets. So the syndicate would set up illegal gambling rooms And then they would use like famous athletes to lure in the rich players and make it look legit, right? And in a moment, I'm going to name the names, okay? So pour a drink. So the hustlers then built a state-of-the-art X-ray machine that would spy from underneath that poker table, right? So you're seeing the cards face down on the picture at the top there, but look at the picture down below. It's the X-ray of what the cards are, right? The cards are face down, but look at the picture. You can see their poker hands, right? This was what was dealt to the players. Those pictures were then transmitted to someone in the back room who, you know, had computer screens going. So you can read for yourself, flop equals 9 of spades, river equals 10 of clubs, perfect 3 of diamonds. They knew everything. And if that's not bad enough, they rigged massive card shuffling machines. Take a look at this thing. This is what stacked the deck and predicted who got the best hand at poker. Shuffle, 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 but not really. We know exactly who's getting what. They had other stuff too, this high-tech racket. Poker chip trays with electronics inside that could read, and then dummy cell phones that could apparently read cards as well. So in a scheme right out of Ocean's 11, they also did something I'd never heard of before. They drew invisible marks on the backs of the cards that could only be seen by the con artist who was wearing special contact lenses. Can you imagine? Like, these guys were pro. That's the high-tech part of this whole boondoggle. But the low-tech part, that was just filled in by old-school mob tactics involving, get this, 4 of the 5 major New York crime families, which in itself is bewildering because you do not often hear that the Bonanos and the Gambinos and the Lucchese's and the Genovese's all play in the sandbox together. Not well, anyway. Victims who lost big at those tables and then owed big to the swindlers. They faced the goons, the guys in the fedoras in the back alley, you know, who physically made the victims pay up, if you know what I mean. Okay, so that's the poker side of the gambit. Now for the sports side of the scam. The feds say that players and coaches faked injuries and then leaked the inside information on who was going to play and who wasn't going to play. And those involved in the racket would then make millions laying their bets. Let's start with the bold-faced names, okay? Then I'm going to tell you all the bad things that they allegedly did. If you are into sports ball, you're going to recognize these names. Terry Rozier. He's a current guard with the Miami Heat, and he's in his 10th season. That guy is charged with faking injuries so that gamblers could bet on how low his nightly scoring tally was going to be. Because if he ain't playing, his score's low. Police said that more than $200,000 was bet and paid out after one of these schemes. And then there's Chauncey Billups. He's a Hall of Fame player, but now a suspended head coach of the Portland Trailblazers. The cops say that he was enlisted to sit down at those big stakes poker tables in New York City to make the games look, you know, legit. And then there was Damon Jones. Damon spent 12 years in the NBA before retiring back in 2009, but he is accused of tipping off the gamblers to inside information while at the same time acting as an unofficial coach for the LA Lakers. Now, get that drink close to you, okay? Because I'm going to get more specific here. They say that he tipped off the mob that a superstar player was injured and wasn't going to play that night. And I know you want me to tell you who that player was. Who's the superstar, Ashleigh? Feds are not naming the superstar, but they say this. LeBron James was too hurt to play at that time. Between the lines? Also, incidentally, Damon Jones spent years playing with LeBron James when they were in Cleveland together. So, damn. Like, holy, yikes. What does it all mean? Where's this going to go? That's when I call in Mark Geragos, right? Renowned criminal defense attorney, co-host of the podcasts Reasonable Doubt and Two Angry Men. Geragos, did I lay that out according to the way you read the indictments? And if so, is this as massive as it seems to little old me?
Yes, you did. You did not go all Stephen A. Smith, who has a Trump conspiracy theory connected to this as well. But for those who don't know, this investigation, this FBI investigation, has been going on for years, and it started in a very unlikely way, and it actually started in connection with baseball, and it's made its way over to basketball. You have the one thing I would disagree with is I remember the invisible ink on card scam from years ago. The others I had not heard of. So I was the opposite of you, and I knew about the invisible ink, but did not know about the sophisticated card shuffling operation. But boy, if anything will cure you of gambling quick, this would be it.
I think so, and I'm with you. I think there were things in my Cracker Jack box that I could read with glasses, but I just hadn't heard that they'd advanced to contact lenses. That was spooky AF, if you ask me. I want to ask you something that, the feds, as you know, they don't go after cases unless they truly believe they're 99% rock solid convictions. So is this bad? Like, there's a lot of fans out there who are freaking out and hoping that these guys are going to beat the rap. Are they?
Well, look, if you take a look statistically, as you just said, the feds generally win almost virtually every case. It's one of the reasons we talked for months, if not almost a year, about Diddy's case, because that was such a heavy lift and such an outlier. I mean, normally, if there's a federal case, 90-something% end in some kind of a plea. Of the remaining percentage that go to trial, it's rare that anybody ever hears a not guilty in a federal criminal defense case. And there's just so many things against you. So my guess is, if this is like every other federal criminal case, what'll happen is there will be a rush for the prosecutor's door. One of those defendants will roll over, cooperate against somebody else, and that will start a domino effect. That is exactly the playbook that is used in the federal arena, and I have no reason to believe it wouldn't happen here.
Okay, there's one thing that was so ironic in the last 12 hours. One of my producers is a big sports fan and noticed that ESPN was reporting on this story while at the same time they were advertising in the lower part of the screen one of those betting apps. And I'm sort of curious from a legal perspective how complicated this makes things with regard to betting apps and the real close relationship now they have with reporting sports and maybe playing sports.
Well, take a look at, if you will, it's interesting because that was the first thing that I thought of. The amount of money that the betting apps and the betting companies, the gambling, spends in terms of advertising, promotion, everything around pro sports now. This is bound to happen, and it's a natural consequence of all of that money there. You can believe also that if, and it's unlikely just because of the pure percentages, but if somebody makes it to trial, that arguably will be one of the defenses, is that what are you talking about? How are you going to criminalize something and send somebody away, so to speak, when the entire league and the prosperity of the league, and not just this league, but most of sports, is now almost 50% dependent on the revenues from the gambling sites and the gambling apps?
Yeah, that doesn't make me feel good. I'm not a gambler, but I just don't like to see people scammed. I mean, I do a true crime show. I'm all about the victims. I do have a question about what I think is like the world's second oldest profession, cheating at gambling and cheating at sports. This is not going away. Is this cat and mouse game just constantly on the escalation wheel, meaning the criminals are getting better with their contact lenses and the feds are getting better with the way to track them?
Well, that's also a really interesting point. When I started practicing criminal defense law, which has gone on, I hate to say it, almost 5 decades ago, there were actually prosecutions for bookmaking. You actually would walk into the criminal courts building, and there were people who were being prosecuted criminally for bookmaking. That kind of evaporated as these things went offshore. You'll remember, you and I are both unfortunately old enough to remember when the gambling sites were operated offshore. Well, then that evolved into, now they became mainstream, and then they became huge advertisers. And then they became the revenue stream by which they're monetized by all of these leagues. So, yes, I just think that part of the inextricable DNA of sports is that anytime you have this kind of a competition at this kind of a level, there is that urge to gamble or bet on it or wager on it, and that's always going to be the case.
I'm calling my cousin, who's a movie director, about this because I think it's an upgrade to Molly's Game. That was a great movie, but this one has even more bells and whistles. Mark Geragos, thanks so much.
Thank you, Ashleigh.
All right, I also now want to bring in a couple of other friends of mine who happen to be well known in the world of organized crime. Michael Franzese was a longtime capo with the Colombo crime family. He's now an author who has worked with the NCAA and professional sports to help prevent gambling problems. And Sammy the Bull Gravano was once an underboss from the Gambino family. He now helps debunk the inner workings of his former profession. His amazing podcast, Our Thing, is available everywhere and on YouTube, and he's got lots and lots of fans. To the two of you, it's great to have you back on the show. I cannot wait for this conversation. Michael, I'm going to start with you. I guess it's a pretty simple question. Does any of this, what I just reported, and all the other headlines that go with it, does it surprise you?
Not at all, Ashleigh. I got to tell you, that was a great opening. You really covered it well. You know, let me put it this way. It's not a surprise at all. I mean, gambling has been major business in our former lives, forever. And I say this, prohibition was terrific. Guys made a lot of money, but it came and went. I was in the gas business. Terrific. I had my run, 7 or 8 years, comes and goes. But gambling in that life is never going to go away. What happened here, I believe, is just the tip of the iceberg. It's a major business for the guys. They love it. They're good at it. And, unfortunately, professional and college athletes, they're always at risk because gambling among athletes, it's an extension of their competitive spirit. They like to raise the stakes in a competition. This is who they are. This has been my experience with them. And they're always going to gamble. They're always going to get themselves in trouble. They're not all Michael Jordans that can afford any money that he loses. He'll never have a problem because he can cover any bet. But a lot of these guys get in trouble. They get involved with the wrong people. And before you know it, we have a whole deal like this.
Sammy, when I read about physical brutality, like goons descending on these victims who ran up big bets, who were cheated and ran up big bets and then got beaten up to get the money, I thought that stuff ended in the 70s, but clearly it didn't. And I wanted to ask you about the mob family involvement. 4 out of 5 of the famous mob families in New York were involved. I didn't think they ever worked on anything together, ever. Where am I wrong?
Well, they did work together. There was the Concrete Club. When they have mutual connections and they can bring it together, they work together. On the Concrete case, they used different unions and everybody had their own connections for stuff. They put it all together. It was very powerful. And then they split the money. But it's not a normal thing with gambling, I don't think. Usually it's separated in different families. I never heard of this. And when the show is over, I'd like to know where you could buy that machine.
Kind of had a feeling you were going to say that, Sammy. But before I leave that topic for a second, I'm still kind of stuck in the 70s and in the movies. And I want to ask you realistically, from what you know today, how bad does the violence get when it comes to these debt collectors today? Are they just a punch in the nose like the indictment read, or are they breaking legs?
I don't know. I really haven't done that when they're coming in with 50, 100, 200,000 to play, I can't see how they lose, they leave. They're pretty rich people, and I can't see they're up against the mob and they're saying, I'm not going to pay, where you'd have to give them a beating. Some guys would do that. I don't think that's necessary. And this is where they're really going to get in trouble. Without the violence in this case, just like Michael said, this has been around forever. This is gambling. A case like this, if there's no violence, These guys will plea out to 5 or 6 year sentence, go in and do their time, 3, 4 years, and be out, look like a hero. There's no reason to get beatings. And I don't think that a lot of these people, I mean, I think government has always turned around and exaggerated cases, just like they did in the P. Diddy case. They put it into a RICO case, didn't belong in a RICO case, and they lost the case. With a RICO, it's almost impossible for them to lose. So
I'm also really confused about how the professional athletes get roped into A, being convinced to come and sit at the table to make it look legit, and B, fake an injury so we can all make a little money off the the spread. Maybe Michael, if you could explain to me, how does the members of the racket, how do they approach these coaches and athletes to ask for those two things? Do something, throw a game, fake an injury, or come and take part in these poker games so that we can fleece all these rich people?
Well, quite often you don't have to convince these guys to do it. They're on their streets sometimes. They have relationships. They meet with somebody. It's like anything else. You get around them. They get to trust you a little bit. You talk about making some money. Who knows? If he's a real gambler, maybe they lost some money. They want to make it up. And, they came around us a lot because, hey, we can work with these guys. They're never going to tell on us. They're going to protect us. We can make some money with them. Why not? You got to remember this, Ashleigh. When you're trying to, compromise the outcome of a game, it's never about winning or losing. It's always about the point spread. So if you have a player that, allegedly, let's say that team is favored to win by 10 or 12 points, and that player is either on the bench or out with an injury, and he doesn't contribute, and he tells his partner there, hey, bet the under because I'm not going to be there. Well, who's hurt in his mind? We're not losing. We're just not going to cover the spread. So we made a few bucks. We didn't really hurt the team. And that's how they think of it, and that's how we can convince them, hey, look, we don't want you to lose. Just don't cover the spread. You'll make some money.
I got 10 seconds left, but I got to ask this question, and Sammy, I have to get you to answer it. If it's possible that somebody in this syndicate decided to turn, and the old term is rat out the others, what do you think is in store for that person that turned on the others?
Well, more than likely in the mob, we killed them. I turned myself, but normally that's what they'll do. They'll kill them. I don't think this is to that degree. These people are not going to be facing life sentences, stuff like that. These are small sentences that they'll plea out. Everybody will pound their chest. They won. The answer to the other question is, how do you get them in? Greed. I see the coach made $100 million. What is he doing in the middle of this? How much greed? How much money do you want? And you put your whole career and everything on the line. That young kid who's saying that I'm faking injury and blow the game. I mean, they come out of a tough area, most of them, and they have a great career, a great future, and they throw it down the drain for greed.
I think you make a really good point. You make a lot of good points.
Yeah, they'll meet you on the street.
I just want to tell you, sometimes I learn more from you guys than I do reading every indictment that I've ever done in my career. And I am so appreciative when you join me on the show and you speak from the hip and you tell me the real thing. Michael Franzese and Sammy the Bull Gravano, thank you both. I look forward to seeing you again.
You got it.
Thank you so much.
We'll pray for the little girl. Okay, coming up. When a Kentucky sheriff shot a judge dead in his own chambers, the rumor mill exploded. And one of those rumors that turned out not to be true involved that sheriff shooter's underage daughter. That daughter is now 19. And guess what? She's taking to social media to set the record straight. And boy, is she saying some things. I'm going to show you everything next. When the video hit the internet seemed to explode. A Kentucky sheriff waltzing into a judge's chambers, making a phone call, and then just standing up and shooting that judge dead, execution style, as the judge sat there smoking at his desk. What in the ever-loving world could have caused this sequence of events? And the true crime community was off and running, right? It wasn't long before a detective said that sheriff, Sean Mickey Steins, found his own daughter's phone number listed in the judge's cell phone and immediately called her from that judge's cell phone before shooting that judge dead. That surely seemed to suggest a motive right there, a reason why the sheriff might kill his longtime friend, Judge Kevin Mullins. More information would soon drop that the judge himself was connected to sex for favors, a whole scheme where women in the local jail could get a break if they gave the judge and other authority figures sexual favors, sometimes in chambers. So was that judge, that shooting victim, involved somehow with that sheriff, the shooter's teen daughter? As it turned out, no. Equivocally, no. Unequivocally, no. The investigator who said it recanted that information. But that didn't change things for the sheriff's teenage daughter, who was swept up in all that misinformation. And now she's setting the record straight on TikTok. Our senior national reporter, Brian Enton, has been covering this story from the beginning, and he's here now. Brian, this one was so bizarre. What is she saying, and why is she saying what she's saying now?
Yeah, I wasn't expecting to see her pop up on TikTok speaking out, especially since her dad, the sheriff, is now about to be on trial for murder. But it seems like you said she's trying to set the record straight. There were all these rumors initially that she may have had some kind of relationship with the judge, and that perhaps that's why this happened. That is not the case. Those questions came up during the grand jury testimony, and I got my hand on those transcripts, and the detective is very clear that that is not what happened at all, and maybe that's why now the sheriff's daughter decided to speak out on TikTok. Listen to what she said, Ashleigh.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lila Steins. I am 18 years old, and I am from Letcher County, Kentucky. Most of you may know me, and the others may recognize my last name. On September 19th, a little over a year ago, a lot of people's lives changed forever, including mine. I'm not going to go into detail. I will not be talking about it, but I just have one question. Do you all not have anything better to do than to sit and gossip? You are taking my pain and making it your pleasure. You're taking our stories and turning them into big entertainment pieces, jokes, and for that matter, you're making it your income. Since when did that become okay? I come on here today to address a couple things about yesterday's video. When I posted that video, I only had about 950 followers. I did not think it would go anywhere. I thought, people from home's going to see it, maybe a couple others, and that'll be that. So the first thing I want to say is I had good intentions with that video. A lot of you were asking, what stories? What do you mean by gossip? And what I mean by that is the stories that were made up about me and the other party. And that is where the gossip comes in at. I wasn't actually talking about the situation and what actually happened itself. I was more leaning towards the rumors that had been spread about me.
So it's interesting to sort of see her, it seems like she regretted posting that first video, maybe not realizing how viral it would go because there's so much interest in the case, Ashleigh, especially these allegations that the judge may have been involved in this underground sex ring of high-profile officials in town. We've been trying to get to the bottom of it. The Attorney General wondering if they're doing an investigation in the state. They haven't gotten back to us, but from what I hear, there have been investigators around asking questions. Ashleigh?
I feel for Lila. I mean, her life, I just feel so terribly for her, especially with the misinformation and her being at the center of it. Brian, thank you for that. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Ash.
Okay, got to stop down for a minute, but don't go anywhere. I've got new information about that brazen $100 million art heist from the Louvre Museum in Paris. We initially thought that the thieves must have made a lightning-fast getaway, but that is not what the video shows. Not even close. The escape is instead worthy of an SNL skit. And we've got the video. You're going to see it next.
Merde.
Ok, merci. Les individus sont en scooter, ils vont quitter.
Putain, ça y est. La police.
Ah, c'est sûr, pour passage du Suez, qu'on arrête les entrées. C'est bon.
Ils sont partis, non?
Merde.
Ok, merci.
Merde.
Ok, merci. Les individus sont en scooter, ils vont quitter.
Merde.
Ok, merci. Les individus sont en...
If I have learned anything from movies like Ocean's 11, it is this. If you are trying to pull off a heist, get in, get out, make it quick. And up until now, that is exactly what we thought happened when $100 million worth of precious gems were stolen from the Louvre Museum in Paris in just 7 minutes. But newly released footage shows that the caper could have been a lot quicker had it not been for the absolute clown car getaway. Take a look. I was shocked when I saw this was it. This was how they got out. You could see the bucket that they used for the escape. It's descending to the ground. This is real time, folks. It's not slow-mo. And it is nothing like the fast break that we'd imagined they'd planned. Security guards can actually be heard in the background swearing at themselves in French for having let the thieves get away. Take a look at this.
Merde.
Ok, merci.
For my French speakers out there, look up merde, and you'll know what they said. With the amount of time it takes them to get down this mechanized ladder, I'm sure I'd be swearing too. By the way, you would notice there that one of the figures was wearing a motorcycle helmet, but the other guy was not. The other guy who was craning his neck over the bucket and looking down. I keep wondering if he's looking down for a fallen helmet, perhaps. If so, it certainly doesn't seem like they were able to find any fallen helmet if it fell before making them get away on the scooters. And if that is what he was looking for, that could have been a real costly mistake. ABC News is reporting that investigators were able to take DNA from both, get this, a helmet and a glove, and they're in the process of testing it. The thieves also left behind another item, one that they tried and failed to steal. The crown of Napoleon III's wife. Get this, it's made of 1,354 diamonds, 56 emeralds, and multiple gold eagles. Thank God they screwed up on this one. But believe it or not, there's actually a small upside to this devastating heist. It's done wonders for tourism at the Louvre. Social media is jam-packed with true crime-hungry internet sleuths piecing together how the band of thieves could have pulled this off. And the online interest is expected to bring even more tourists to the museum. That is, if the museum can handle it. Last June, the Louvre had to shut down for a few hours because the staff went on strike, citing untenable working conditions because there were just too many visitors. Still to come, when it comes to people you shouldn't try to mug, a former wrestler should be pretty high on the list. And a would-be mugger in West Hollywood learned that lesson the hard way. We've got the video to prove it and the injury that mugger will never forget next.